Hello and welcome to the wonderful world of English language classroom. Learners of class 12. Today we will do a lesson, the first lesson, which is ironically titled as the lost lesson in your textbook Flamingo. Learners, you have come across a variety of texts in class 11, short stories, biographies, autobiographies, travelogues and nice poetry, different manner. We will further explore, venture into various and diversified texts in class 12 with the purpose of acquiring language in natural context. When I say natural context, this text, the stories are going to help you work with, engage with language. So, in this context, we have a short story today, very moving, heart moving short story titled as Lost Lesson, which is situated during the Franco-Prussian War. You must be wondering what is Prussian War. We will come to that later. Before we get on to the lesson and learn to read and learn some vocabulary and other aspects, learners, before we get on to the lesson, let me introduce your co-learner Devyani.
Hello.
So, Devyani and learners, how do you feel?
I am feeling good.
Fine, fine. Okay, we also feel good, and we assume that learners also feel good at this point of time. Learners and Devyani, let me ask you some embarrassing situations, not so embarrassing, so not so good situations. The first and foremost, all of a sudden you are taken to a place where nobody speaks your language or the languages you know. So, how do you feel?
I will feel lost and weird, of course, and it will be really hard for me to communicate to people.
And it will be very uncomfortable. Yes. Fine, fine. Okay. The second situation, how do you feel on the first day of joining an office? You are class 12 children, maybe after some years you will be going to do some job, or at the university, you go to the university, then how do you feel on the first day which you do not know anyone, you all of them are strangers to you?
I will start a conversation with anybody, with someone, to be honest, and yeah.
Fine, all right. And these are the very difficult times we are made to confine in, at home. So, and there are occasions we had to be alone at home for hours together, and you feel like not reading anything, watching TV also. How do you feel?
I actually enjoy myself alone at home, so I don't have problem.
You don't get bored. That's a good thing. That thing you have to learn to be alone. The times are not so easy. Fine. Another thing, you must have read that Robinson Crusoe, heard of the story. He was left in an island for so many years. Then he loses his speech because he has nobody to converse with. Then he starts reading the Bible, and at last he lost his speech.
Yes, yes.
So, that's another extreme of the situation. All of a sudden, I do not want that to happen. Your area is occupied by somebody, colonized by somebody, the way the British did to us, or the British did to the Europeans did to the Americans or Africans. All of a sudden, someone comes on your land and imposes his or her language. How do you feel?
It will be really bad. I will not feel good.
Yes, so nobody will feel good. So, your language is snatched away. Yet another situation, Devyani and learners, all of a sudden you are stranded in a foreign country without money. What will you do?
I don't know.
You don't know. Learners, think of such situations. We know we have seen during this corona virus invasion that many people were stranded. They had money, but they could not buy anything. Yes. They could not move around. So, we have seen that. There are situations which might arise in any situations. So, why I am saying all these kind of situations, Devyani and the learners there, this story, the lost lesson, makes a group of people in a part of France all of a sudden to lose their language. Lose their language means their language will not be taught in school, their language will not be used for administration. So, all of a sudden they have the language, but that has no value. So, let us look at how people manage the situation. So, learners, let us also know why this happened, such situation. This story sets in 18, the story sets in 1870-71, when the world was 19th century completely different. It was the first world war and second world war that almost redrawn the European map. So, this was a war between France and Prussia. So, what do you understand by Prussia?
It is a country's name.
It is a country's name. Where is it?
It's the old name of France.
Old name of Germany, not France. Okay, it was the Prussian Empire which became United Germany under the leadership of the king and the Bismarck, who was called that Iron Man. Yeah, the Iron Man. Then the nation states were being formed, and in the 19th century, 18th century, there were no nation states like France, England, India, Pakistan. So, we call them in political science, or historically we call them nation states. A nation is defined after the Second World War very well in the name of, in the form of nationality, language, culture, religion. This was a war between France and the erstwhile Germany, that was part of Prussia. There all of a sudden a part of France was invaded by the Prussians. Then the notice was circulated, order was issued that from henceforth, now onwards, your language will not be used in the classroom. So, French will not be taught in your area. So, here is the map of the Prussian war, learners. You can see the Prussian map, Franco-Prussian war map. So, the part of France was invaded by the Prussians. So, this is for your historical understanding. The map is there in your textbook, you can refer to it, or from the library you can refer to it. So, now lot of introduction is needed for this lesson, because we also have seen Indians, Indian subcontinent was divided into two nations in 1947 when we got independence. Part of India was carved out and declared as Pakistan and India, the mainland. So, we also suffered a lot. That is altogether a different story. Almost 6 lakh people perished in the partition. That was the largest ever loss of life in a known history for a partition. So, that is a different thing. You must have read it in our history textbook, or in otherwise you know it. Okay. Learners, before we move on to read this lesson, understand this lesson, let me ask Devyani to read out the objectives of this lesson to you.
Objectives of this lesson. At the end of the interaction, learners will be able to read the text, the last lesson, with understanding and interpret ideas. Reduce the meaning of words and phrases and use them for purposes. Notice the form in past perfect and use it in context.
Thank you, Devyani. Learners, we have set our objectives for this lesson. That is, we will read the text, the last lesson, and interpret the ideas, then use some of the, learn and use some of the words and phrases, vocabulary. Then we also will notice the form past perfect, that is, he had done it before he did this. So, had plus past participle. So, let us not much bother about the rules of grammar, we will learn by in context. So, learners, here is the summary of the text. You need to read it, and we are summarizing in some pointers. We will alternatively read. Let me start, and Devyani, you will follow me. Come on. Okay. Learners, here is the story. Narrator of the story, Franz started for school very late and he was feeling bad.
He was worried because their French teacher, Mr. Hamel, would question the class on participles.
As he passed the town hall, he saw a crowd in front of a bulletin board, notice board. Last 2 years, he noticed lot of bulletins as France was losing the war against the Prussians, that is the Germans.
On seeing France moving fast, someone told him not to hurry as there was plenty of time.
So, he couldn't understand why the person was saying something. As he reached the school, he noticed an uneasy calm instead of the general usual bustle of closing desk lesson repetitions.
He opened the class door expecting Mr. Hamill scold him, but he politely told him to go to his place.
Franz also noticed some strange behaviors and saw village elders were sitting at the back of the benches.
The teacher, Mr. Hamill, wore his beautiful green coat, frilled shirt, and silk cap, which he generally wore on special occasions, on inspection day and Sundays.
Fine. There was something strange. Franz noticed everybody looked very sad.
Hamill told them that it was the last lesson, that they should be attentive.
Franz realized that the bulletin in the town hall was on this only, that is, this is the last French lesson in the school.
Though Franz was not serious about learning French, Mr. Hamill's class, he now felt sad and was shocked as the Germans would take over.
Fine. The teacher, Mr. Hamill, told Franz that he won't scold him anymore.
Mr. Hamill taught them grammar, writing, then some chanting, practice for learning pronunciation, ba, be, bi, bo, boo.
Fine. So, now he was serious on the even on the last day teaching. The village elders who sat at the back started crying on seeing Mr. Hamill's emotions.
Then the church clock struck 12, followed by the trumpets of the Prussians who were returning from drills.
Hamill now wrote on the blackboard, "Vive France," and said, "The school is dismissed, you may go." Vive France, long live France. Learners, this is the story summary, what we call the subtext of the whole lesson. Devayani, I assume it, and it is assumed that you have read or you will be reading it.
Yes.
So, reading can be, I can't make you read it here, you are in class 12. So, the summary has been presented. Now, learners, we have understood a very difficult situation in of the French people in Prussia. So, now the French language will not be taught anymore. Everyone is grief stricken. Then learners, there are two things we need to understand. One is reading and learning the language through reading. Other things we learn, that is the human rights, the values, that is we should respect the other. So, the world has seen lot of struggles, this is one of them. So, you may ask your history teacher or political science teacher, or you may have come across the unification of Germany. Yes. In class 9 probably, how Prussia became strong German state, then that led to lot of problems, First World War, Second World War, many things. We know that Hitler was an outcome of those unification. Fine. So, we need some historical knowledge to understand this lesson. So, learners, here is a challenge for you. The next task, we are going to understand the text, and I am going to test you in a way. Devayani will answer for you, and here are some questions on multiple choice. So, let me read out as it appears on the screen, and there are 4 options for the questions we will be answering together. Fine. The first question: who is Franz, the narrator of the last lesson? A, he is one of the village elders, a school boy, the French teacher, a Prussian soldier.
Franz was a schoolboy.
Fine.
Option B, a schoolboy.
Schoolboy, fine. Who is Mr. Hamill? A student, the French teacher, or the German officer, or the French soldier?
Mr. Hamill, B, the French teacher.
Fine. Okay. Why was there no noise when Franz entered the school? Because the French teacher, Mr. Hamill, was already there. The school knew that it was the last lesson in French in the school. The school was occupied by the Prussians. The French teacher scolded them.
Option B, the school knew that was the last lesson in French in their school.
So, there was almost everyone was not happy. Okay. Why were the village elders present in the French class that day? They wanted to learn French from Mr. Hamel. The French language will not be taught from the next day. The French speakers from the place had to vacate the place from the next day.
Option B, French language will not be taught from the next day.
Fine. So, they are very unhappy about it. Fifth question, Mr. Hamel said that he won't scold France anymore. Why? A, there would not be any French class from the next day onwards. He would retire from service that day. France would be leaving the school the next day. Prussia has won the war. Which one would be right?
Option A, there would not be any French class from the next day onwards.
From the next day. So, onwards there will not be any French class. That is why he cannot scold, he said. Okay. Why was Mr. Hamel's voice choking? He felt sad that French would not be taught in the school from the next day. He was unhappy with his teaching. He saw the elders feeling sad. He was aware of the war and the defeat of France.
Option A, he felt sad that French would not be taught in the school from the next day.
Fine. Learners, this is kind of a general comprehension of the story, understanding. There are many more questions. You will have to read the text and interpret to understand deeper. So, we will see it in further, but now thank you Devayani and learners for having answered those questions. This is very mere basic level understanding of the text. So, you may reread the text and do the questions at the end of the lesson, and there are some thought provoking and which makes you critically think and answer the question. We will come to that later. Now, let us do some of the words and phrases used in the story, so that we understand and learn the new phrases and words. Come on. Let me look at the following text which appears on your screen, and this is from the story Learners and Devayani. First sentence, let me read out. I started for school very late that morning. I started for school very late that morning, and I was in great dread of a scolding. Learners, look at the bold and underlined words, that phrase great dread of. Let me read out again. I started for school very late that day morning, and I was in great dread of a scolding. Let me look at the second sentence. Don't go so fast, pub. You will get to a school in plenty of time. Third one, usually when school began, there was a great bustle, which then next, the opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in unison. The next sentence, everybody looked sad, and Hauser had brought an old primer, thumbed at the edges. We have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. Okay. Learners, look at this, look at the underlined phrases: great dread of, plenty of time, a great bustle, in unison, thumbed at the edges, reproach ourselves. Devayani, what is your first thinking about that great dread of?
He was scared of.
Okay, because someone is going to scold me, a kind of fear. Plenty of time, which everybody knows, yeah. So, you have a lot of time.
Yes.
A great bustle
Means crowded.
noise and humor, talking, some cracking of jokes. In unison,
Like in a cemetery, and they were saying that particular thing in.
no, look at the opening and closing of decks, lessons repeated in unison, all together.
Okay, all together.
Fine, fine. So, learners, that is why I asked you, there are same words may be used in different contexts. Okay. Same with thumbed at the edges, we will come to that. It is very common with our books, and reproach ourselves with. Come on, let us pick up each phrase one after another and learn it by using them in context. So, I am not going to give you this is the meaning of those phrases. That is easy to give, but it will not remain. Learners, let me tell you one thing on Devayani. If you use a word, new word, when you come across 7 to 10 times in meaningful context, then only you can learn the word. So, this is what acquisition of words. Let me tell you the example of you start playing as a child, even now the video game. First time, instead of securing 1000 points, you may acquire not even 100, then many attempts, then you are using it many a time in context, then at one point of time you reach it. So, this is how this is true of language. You have to use it for purposes, with purposes, then only you will learn. Okay. Come on, let us pick up the first one, in great dread of. So, I am going to ask you to read them in context. Come on, read Devayani.
The class was in dread of Hamel's iron ruler. He was in great dread of being caught by his mother for playing video games. She has been delaying her work and is in great dread of getting scolded.
Fine. Look at the usage, in great dread of. Learners and Devayani. Let me read out. The class was in great dread of Mr. Hamel's iron ruler. So, he kept a ruler in his hand, but he never used it, but it itself is. So, what does it mean? They were scared of it. Fine, all right. Look at the second sentence. He was in great dread of being caught by his mother for playing or while playing the video games. Fine. So, he was scared of the mother being, I mean she will catch him. Fine. Then she has been delaying her work as she is in great dread of getting scolded. So, there is a kind of fear when we say in great dread of, dread. So, the author could have used in great dread of, instead of this phrase he would have used fear or scared of, but he has used this particular phrase to convey the meaning that children, the learner, particularly this particular this boy Franz was scared of, because he was never doing his homework. So, learners, let us use appropriate words for appropriate to convey appropriate meaning. That is the idea. Learners, thank you very much for having participated in all the activities of this first lesson, that is the last lesson of class 12. Let me also thank Devayani.
Thank you. We will meet again.
For her participation.